Welcome to Lost Relation Chronicles.
Before we start today's story, please let us know your location in the comment section and don't forget to like and subscribe. Owen Brooks guided his Ford through the winding suburban streets of Colchester. He occasionally glanced at his wife, Lila, slumped in the passenger seat. Her dark hair cascaded over her face like a curtain, her head resting against the window. The lingering effects of anesthesia left her drifting in and out of consciousness. Dr. Baker's warnings about post-procedure behavior echoed in Owen's mind. Some patients can be quite unpredictable coming out of sedation, the oral surgeon had said, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses. Don't take anything they say too seriously for the next few hours. It was standard advice for what should have been a routine day. Lila had 4 impacted wisdom teeth removed without complications, a procedure thousands undergo daily. Owen had even taken the day off work to care for her, despite the teasing from his colleagues at the investment firm. Taking a vacation day to play nurse? Tim had joked during yesterday's meeting. Man, you really are the perfect husband. The memory of their laughter felt hollow now as Owen tightened his grip on the steering wheel, his gold wedding band catching a glimmer of sunlight. Perfect husband, right? What time is it? Lila mumbled through the gauze in her cheeks, stirring slightly in her seat. Almost 5, Owen replied softly. We'll be home in about 10 minutes. How are you feeling? Lila adjusted the ice pack on her jaw, the designer watch on her wrist. His anniversary gift to her the previous year gleamed faintly, like my head stuffed with cotton balls. Everything's floaty. That's normal, he reassured her. The doctor said the anesthesia will take a few hours to wear off completely. You always have everything figured out, don't you? She turned toward him, her eyes glassy and unfocused. Perfect Owen with his perfect plans, she murmured. Something in her tone made him glance over sharply. What do you mean by that? It's almost funny, she continued, her words growing clearer despite the gauze in her cheeks. How you think you've got everything under control? You're such a fool. I've been cheating right under your nose, and you haven't even noticed. The words hit him like a punch to the gut. His hands jerked on the steering wheel, sending the car swerving sharply into the next lane. A horn blared as a red SUV sped past, its driver's angry gesture barely registering. Jesus, Owen muttered, gripping the wheel tightly as he corrected course, his heart hammering in his chest. What did you just say? But Lila had already slumped back against the window, her breathing deep and steady. The confession, if that's what it was, seemed to have drained the last of her energy. Owen forced his focus back to the road, though his mind raced through a whirlwind of thoughts. People said strange things under anesthesia. He'd heard plenty of stories, like his cousin who had spent 10 minutes arguing with her oral surgeon about the existence of unicorns. This had to be the same, a drug-induced delusion. It had to be, but the bitterness in her words, the specific clarity of right under your nose, cut through the haze, lingering in his mind like a stubborn echo. Their driveway appeared ahead, and Owen pulled in on autopilot, muscle memory guiding him while his thoughts churned. The garage door lifted with its familiar mechanical whir, revealing the meticulously organized space he took pride in. Tools arranged neatly on pegboards, storage bins labeled and stacked, everything in perfect order. He pressed the button to close the door and sat in the car for a moment, studying his wife's sleeping face in the dim light. Details he'd overlooked before now screamed for attention. The subtle makeup she'd insisted on applying for a simple dental procedure, the expensive highlights she'd recently added to her hair, and the new perfume she'd started wearing, a soft jasmine scent she'd never liked before. Lila, he said, surprised at the steadiness of his voice. We're home. Home, she murmured, stirring and blinking slowly. Already? Yeah. Let me help you inside. Getting her out of the car required careful effort. She leaned heavily on him, unsteady on her feet as they navigated through the mudroom and up the stairs. Each step felt surreal, his arm around her waist as intimate as ever, yet now burdened with the weight of her words. While his mind screamed with questions, their bedroom appeared just as they had left it that morning. Bed made with military precision, decorative pillows arranged artfully. Everything bore Lila's touch, a carefully curated perfection that now felt artificial, like a stage set. I need to use the bathroom, Lila mumbled as he helped her sit on the edge of the bed. Are you sure you can manage? She nodded, then winced at the movement. I'm not completely helpless. Owen watched her as she shuffled toward their en-suite bathroom, her steps unsteady but determined. The door closed with a soft, almost final click, leaving him alone in the room. His eyes were drawn to her purse, sitting innocently on the dresser where he had placed it earlier. The expensive leather bag was a recent self-gift, Another change he had accepted without question. His hands trembled slightly as he approached it, guilt and anger warring in his chest. The main compartment held nothing obviously incriminating, though he noticed several high-end cosmetics he didn't recognize. In a side pocket, however, he found her phone. The screen was locked. She had recently changed the passcode, citing work security protocols, a red flag he'd willfully ignored. The sound of running water from the bathroom spurred him to act quickly. In her wallet, he discovered a stack of receipts that began to paint a damning picture. A charge from Luigi's last Thursday when she had claimed to be working late. A coffee shop bill from 2 weeks ago during a supposed critical client meeting. Small inconsistencies, but together, they formed a troubling pattern. A notification lit up her phone screen. Meeting confirmed for Thursday. Just an initial, no context, but enough to make his stomach churn. Owen carefully replaced everything, ensuring it was exactly as he had found it. Years of meticulous habits served him well, even now. The bathroom door opened, and Owen stepped away from the dresser just in time. Lila emerged looking slightly more alert but still pale. "Could you get me some water?" she asked, easing back onto the bed. "And maybe another ice pack. This one's warm." "Of course," he replied, almost grateful for the excuse to leave the room and collect himself. In the kitchen, Owen went through the motions. Filling a glass with filtered water, retrieving a fresh ice pack from the freezer. Their kitchen was a showcase of domestic perfection. High-end appliances, marble countertops, the expensive coffee maker he had bought her for Christmas. How many of these carefully chosen possessions had silently borne witness to her deceptions? When he returned, Lila was propped up against the headboard, scrolling through her phone. She quickly locked the screen when he entered, a gesture he'd seen countless times before but never questioned. "Here you go," he said, helping her position the straw between her swollen lips. She managed a few small sips. "Thanks. You're always so good at taking care of me." The words felt like acid in his ears. "That's what husbands are for, right?" Lila sighed and closed her eyes. "I think I need to sleep for a while." "Good idea. Doctor's orders, remember?" Once she was settled with the fresh ice pack, Owen retreated to his home office across the hall. The space had always been his sanctuary. Dark wood furniture, a leather chair, and a sense of order that now seemed impossibly distant. Diplomas and professional certificates hung with meticulous precision on the walls, transforming the room into what now felt like a command center for an investigation he never wanted to conduct. Owen opened his laptop, bypassing his usual work emails, and began scrutinizing their shared calendar. Patterns emerged, patterns he'd been too trusting, too blind to see before. The client meetings that always seemed to fall on Thursday evenings. The professional development workshops requiring overnight stays. The girls' nights that had become more frequent but oddly produced fewer social media posts than they used to. His phone buzzed with a text from Maya, Lila's sister. "How did the procedure go? Is she doing okay?" Owen stared at the message, suspicion creeping in. Maya and Lila were close, too close perhaps. Did Maya know? Was she covering for her sister? How many people had been silently watching him play the role of the trusting husband, laughing at his willful blindness? "Procedure went fine," he typed back. "She's resting now." "You're such a good husband," came Maya's reply. "She's lucky to have you." Owen set the phone face down on his desk, unable to stomach the irony. Hours passed as he pieced together their recent history through this new lens. Late-night work calls she took in the backyard, pacing along the garden path he'd installed last summer. Gym sessions that produced no visible changes. New passwords on everything, from her phone to her laptop. A memory surfaced from 3 weeks ago. He had walked into their bedroom to find her hastily closing her laptop, claiming she was finishing work emails. He hadn't questioned it. He'd even brought her a glass of wine and left her alone. Was she messaging her lover then? Planning another rendezvous, while he played the role of attentive husband? The sound of movement from their bedroom broke his train of thought. Checking his watch, he realized it was past 8 p.m. He'd been sitting for hours, building a mental case file of suspicions and circumstantial evidence. His stomach growled, but the thought of food made him nauseous. Owen found Lila attempting to sit up, more coherent now but still moving gingerly. "What time is it?" she asked, wincing as she touched her swollen cheek. "Just after 8, he answered, helping her adjust her pillows. "How's the pain?" "Not great, but not terrible." She looked around, slightly confused. "Have I been asleep this whole time?" "Pretty much. You were pretty out of it after the procedure." She frowned lightly. "Did I say anything weird in the car or anything?" "Everything's kind of fuzzy." Owen felt his heart rate spike, but kept his tone casual. "Nothing important, Just typical anesthesia babbling. The subtle relief that crossed her face didn't escape him. Good. I was worried I might have embarrassed myself. No more than usual, he replied, forcing a smile that felt painfully tight. Want some water? As she sipped through the straw, he studied her face. Did she remember what she'd said earlier? Was there any trace of guilt in her expression? But the swelling obscured her features, and the lingering anesthesia masked any telling emotions. My phone, she said suddenly. Where is it? In your purse on the dresser. Want me to grab it? Please. He retrieved it, watching as she immediately began checking her messages. Her thumb moved with practiced speed, dismissing notifications before he could glimpse them. Work stuff, she explained unprompted. Never stops, even when you're down for the count. Anything important? He asked lightly. Just the usual drama. Nothing that can't wait until I'm back on my feet. The lies flowed so easily from her lips. How long had this been going on? How many casual deceptions had he accepted without question? You should rest, he said, unable to bear watching the performance any longer. Doctor's orders. You're right, she agreed, easing back against the pillows. Thank you for taking such good care of me. The words twisted in his gut like a knife. Owen managed a nod before retreating from the room, closing the door quietly behind him. Back in his office, he opened a private browser window and began researching divorce attorneys in the area. He wasn't ready to act, not yet. He needed proof, real proof, not just suspicions and circumstantial evidence. But he could start preparing. As the night stretched on, Owen made notes, researched legal strategies, and began documenting every suspicious memory he could recall. One thing became increasingly clear. Confronting Lila directly would be worse than useless. She would deny everything, twist the narrative, perhaps even make him feel paranoid. No, if he wanted the truth and justice, he'd need to be smarter. He'd have to gather irrefutable evidence, build an airtight case, and prepare for the fallout, all while maintaining a facade of normalcy. As midnight approached, Lila's phone buzzed again in the bedroom. Another late-night message from someone who clearly knew she might be awake. Owen's jaw clenched, but he forced himself to stay seated, resisting the urge to storm in and demand answers. His gaze fell on the wedding photo on his desk, their smiling faces frozen in a moment of supposed perfection. 12 years of marriage, built on what he had thought was an unshakable foundation of trust and respect. Now, he wondered if any of it had been real. One thing was certain. He would never forgive this betrayal. The trust they had built over more than a decade was shattered, and no explanation or apology could repair it. Staring at the photo, a cold determination settled over him. He would uncover everything. He would document every lie, every betrayal, every deception. And when the time came, he would use it all to ensure Lila lost everything she had tried to take from him. His dignity, his trust, and their shared future. For now, though, he had to play his part. The caring, oblivious husband. It would take all his self-control, but he was ready. He wasn't the only one in this marriage who could keep secrets. In the quiet of his office, Owen began to plan. Each lie would be recorded, each betrayal meticulously preserved. And when the moment came to reveal it all, there would be no room for denial, no hope for reconciliation. The man who had driven his wife to a dental appointment that morning was gone. In his place was someone colder, more calculating. A man prepared to match her deception with his own calculated patience. Let her think she'd fooled him. Let her believe her secret was safe. Owen was ready to play the long game. 3 days passed since Lila's dental procedure. In that time, Owen spent countless hours piecing together patterns, documenting every suspicious detail he could recall. Morning sunlight filtered through the blinds as he reviewed his notes from the previous night. His phone buzzed with a text from Tim, a colleague at work. Missing you at the Henderson meeting. Hope the wife's recovery is going smoothly. Owen typed back a carefully worded response, taking one more day to make sure everything's handled. I'll be back tomorrow. Setting his phone aside, he opened the private tab on his browser and revisited an email from Grace Lee, one of the city's top divorce attorneys. The consultation was scheduled for 2 p.m., perfectly timed while Lila would be at her physical therapy appointment. A knock on his office door prompted him to quickly minimize the window. Come in, he called. Lila stepped inside, looking almost back to normal apart from some residual swelling. She was dressed meticulously in a navy pencil skirt and cream blouse, an outfit Owen now realized cost far more than she had claimed. Hey, she said, hovering in the doorway. I'm heading out to PT. Are you sure you don't want to go back to work? I can drive myself. Better safe than sorry, Owen replied, keeping up the facade of a concerned husband. The doctor said no driving for at least 3 days while you're on the pain meds. Always so protective. She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. I shouldn't be more than an hour. Take your time, he said. Recovery is the priority right now. The moment he heard her car leave the driveway, Owen sprang into action. He had already installed tracking software on their shared laptop, the one she often used for late-night work. Now, he pulled up the keylog data, scanning through her recent activity. Interesting, he muttered, noting multiple deleted browser histories and private browsing sessions. But the software had captured it all: email logins, message threads, and even hotel booking sites. His phone rang. It was the divorce attorney's office. Mr. Brooks, this is Grace Lee's assistant. She had a court appointment end early and wondered if you could come in at 1 p.m. instead. Actually, that works better, Owen said, already gathering his materials. I'll be there. The law office was on the top floor of a sleek downtown high-rise. Grace Lee's corner office had a commanding view of the city, fitting for someone with a reputation for winning high-stakes divorce cases. So, Grace said after reviewing the notes Owen brought, you believe your wife is having an affair, but you don't want to confront her yet? I need to be strategic, Owen explained. If I confront her now, she'll just deny it and get better at hiding the evidence. Grace nodded approvingly. Smart. Most clients let emotions drive them to confront too soon. What evidence do you have so far? Owen opened a folder. Suspicious text messages, inconsistent receipts, unexplained expenses. But nothing concrete yet. Here's what you need, Grace said, sliding a document across her desk. Bank statements, credit card records, phone logs, email archives, photos, or video, if you can get them legally. Most importantly, document everything. Every suspicious absence, unexplained expense, and every lie. Build a pattern. How long this takes depends on how careful she is, but from what you've described, she's getting sloppy. They usually do once they think they've gotten away with it for long enough. Owen nodded, absorbing the advice. And legally, Grace added, start separating your finances. Carefully. Move money in documented, justifiable amounts. We don't want to tip her off or give her ammunition for claims of financial manipulation. The meeting lasted another hour, during which Grace outlined a detailed strategy. By the time Owen left her office, he had a clear plan and a renewed sense of purpose. Back home, he found Lila in the kitchen, preparing dinner. The scene might once have filled him with warmth. Now, it felt like watching a performance. How was PT? He asked, noticing the slight stiffening in her posture. Good. Sarah says I'm making progress. She stirred the pasta sauce, avoiding his gaze. How was your day? She added hesitantly. Productive, Owen replied. Caught up on some work emails. That's good, she said, hesitating before adding, I was thinking about going back to the office tomorrow. I'm feeling much better already. You sure that's wise? I've got that big project deadline coming up, she said, her tone casual, though her eyes betrayed a hint of unease. Owen watched her lie so smoothly, marveling at how effortlessly she wove her story. Can't put it off forever, Lila said, smoothing her blouse as she glanced at him. Owen wondered how many project deadlines had been mere covers for rendezvous with her lover. Whatever you think is best, he said lightly. You know your limits. That evening, while Lila showered, Owen quietly began executing the first phase of his financial strategy. He made a series of careful transfers, shifting funds between accounts in amounts too small to raise suspicion. Once that was done, he called their investment advisor. Jack, it's Owen Brooks. I need to make some changes to our portfolio allocations, he said, keeping his tone businesslike. Yes, I still have Lila's signed authorization from last quarter, he confirmed. The authorization she'd signed without reading, trusting him, as she always had, to manage their finances. Now, that trust would serve a very different purpose. Over the next 2 weeks, their marriage became a careful dance of deception. Owen maintained his routine, quietly collecting evidence as new details confirmed his suspicions. One Thursday evening, Lila was getting ready to leave for yet another client meeting. Owen decided to probe. Which client tonight? He asked casually, leaning against the kitchen counter. Lila paused mid-stroke as she applied her lipstick. The Henderson account, she replied smoothly. You remember? The troublesome one I mentioned last week? Owen nodded, already knowing it was a lie. He'd seen the text confirming her dinner plans with someone else. Want me to drive you? He offered. I could pick you up after, and we could make a date night of it. Oh, no need, she said quickly, too quickly. It'll probably run late. You know how these meetings go. I do now, he muttered under his breath as she walked out the door. Once her car disappeared down the street, Owen opened his laptop and launched the tracking app he'd installed on her phone. The smalt on the map moved steadily, not toward the business district where her office was located, but to the upscale Riverside area. Moments later, his phone buzzed. A text from his private investigator, Jack Carter, popped up. Subject entering Luigi's restaurant. Male subject already at the bar. Sending photos now. Owen opened the attachments. The first image showed Lila in her business attire, greeting a tall man with salt and pepper hair. Their body language was intimate, familiar. The next showed them seated in a private booth, the man's hand resting on her lower back. Got you, Owen murmured, saving the photos to his encrypted drive. He texted back, keep monitoring. I want everything. Over the next hour, more photos arrived. The couple shared wine, laughed with their heads close together, and touched hands across the table. The final text came just after 10 p.m. Subjects departing separately. Female heading to car. Male subject paid bill. Receipt obtained. Owen waited in his office, forcing himself to stay composed, until he heard Lila's car pull into the garage. She entered the house humming softly, her cheeks flushed. How was the meeting? Owen asked from the doorway, his voice calm but watchful. Lila jumped slightly, startled to see him still awake. Oh, I didn't think you'd still be up, she said, recovering quickly. It went well. We finally made some progress on the Henderson situation. Good to hear, Owen replied, noticing the faint smudge in her lipstick and the way her blouse looked just slightly askew. You must be tired. Long day. Exhausting, she agreed, heading upstairs. I think I'll take a shower and head to bed. Once the shower began running, Owen checked his email. Jack had sent over the receipt from Luigi's, $3.52 for dinner and wine, paid by one Nathan Grant. A quick LinkedIn search confirmed Nathan Grant as a partner at a rival firm. Well, Owen murmured, adding the name to his growing file. Nice to finally meet you, Nathan Grant. The next morning, Owen launched the next phase of his plan. At the bank, he presented the paperwork Grace had prepared. I'd like to discuss some changes to our joint accounts, he told the manager, sliding the documents across the desk. My wife's signature is already on the forms. The manager examined the paperwork. Routine authorization forms Lila had signed months ago, which Owen had quietly altered under Grace's guidance. These all seem to be in order, Mr. Brooks, the manager said. The changes will take effect immediately. Back home, Owen found Lila humming while working on her laptop. You seem chipper, he remarked. Good news at work, she said with a smile. Just feeling positive. Things are finally falling into place. I'm sure they are, Owen replied, thinking of the photos from Luigi's. By the way, I took care of those account updates we discussed. All set now. What updates? She asked absently, her attention still on her screen. The ones you signed off on last quarter. Just routine stuff, he said casually, watching her closely. Nothing to worry about. All right, thanks for handling that, she said without looking up. Owen felt a cold satisfaction. Her trust, or perhaps her indifference, regarding their finances made this almost too easy. Weeks passed as Owen continued gathering evidence. Photos of clandestine meetings, hotel receipts, phone records, all meticulously documented to build his case. Then came the message that changed everything. Owen was reviewing his latest financial transfers when a notification appeared from the monitoring software. From Nathan Grant to Lila Brooks, subject weekend plans. Booked the cabin for next weekend, same place as last time. Can't wait to have you all to myself again. Attached was a confirmation for a luxury rental cabin in the mountains. The same cabin Owen discovered they'd used twice before under the guise of Lila's business retreats. His hands shook as he forwarded the email and attached documents to Grace. This was the concrete proof they had been waiting for. Moments later, his phone rang. This is exactly what we needed, Grace said, her voice brisk. The email, the booking confirmation, the previous visits, combined with everything else we've gathered. It's more than enough. So we're ready? Owen asked. Almost. Let them have their weekend. Our investigator will document everything. Once she's back, we'll be ready to execute the full plan. Owen stared at the wedding photo on his desk, his jaw tightening. Good. That evening, Lila was unusually affectionate, touching his arm as she passed and suggesting they watch a movie together. You've seemed distant lately, she said, curling up beside him on the couch. Is everything okay? Just busy with work, Owen replied smoothly. You know how it gets. I miss you, she murmured. For a moment, he almost believed her sincerity. Maybe we should plan a weekend away soon, she suggested, her voice soft. Interesting you should mention that, he said, keeping his tone neutral. I was thinking the same thing. Maybe next weekend? He felt her tense ever so slightly. Oh, next weekend won't work, she said quickly. I have that leadership retreat, remember? Ah, the retreat, Owen said with a forced smile. Of course. Another time then, he said. They sat in the dark, the movie playing on the screen, though neither was really watching. Owen felt an almost savage satisfaction. Let her think she'd fooled him. Let her go to the cabin with her lover. The evidence was mounting, the trap was set, and soon she would learn that some betrayals carried consequences no amount of tears or apologies could erase. The following week passed in a blur of preparation. Owen finalized the financial arrangements, confirmed surveillance details with Jack, and reviewed everything one last time with Grace. Once we have the cabin documentation, Grace said during their final meeting, we'll be ready to file. The financial preparations are complete. The evidence is overwhelming. She won't know what hit her. Perfect, Owen replied coldly. She wants to play games? Fine. But she's about to learn she's not the only one who can keep secrets. That Friday, as he watched Lila pack for her retreat, chatting about leadership seminars and team-building exercises, Owen felt nothing but steely determination. The trusting husband she had betrayed was gone, replaced by someone who would meet her deception with calculated precision. Have a good trip, he said as she left, her overnight bag packed with lingerie he knew wasn't meant for him. I'm sure it'll be enlightening. Thanks for being so understanding, she said, kissing his cheek. You're the best. Owen watched her drive away, then went to his office to make the final call to Jack. She's on her way, he said. Don't lose them. The pieces were in place, the evidence secured. Now, all that remained was the execution of his meticulously crafted plan. A plan that would leave Lila with nothing but the consequences of her betrayal. That Sunday evening, as the sun cast long shadows through the dining room's floor-to-ceiling windows, Owen methodically arranged the evidence folders on the mahogany table. Each manila envelope contained another nail in the coffin of their marriage. Surveillance photos, financial records, hotel receipts, all carefully organized and labeled. His phone buzzed with the latest update from Jack, the private investigator. Target departing cabin now. Final batch of photos uploading. Owen opened the files one by one, each image confirming what he already knew. Lila and Nathan, caught in intimate moments throughout their weekend retreat, embracing on the cabin's deck, sharing wine by the fire pit, disappearing inside as evening fell. The timestamps told a damning story. Another message lit up his screen, this time from Lila. Heading home now. The leadership retreat was amazing. Learned so much about team dynamics and organizational behavior. Should be back in a couple of hours. Miss you. Red heart, Owen muttered sarcastically, forwarding the message to Grace. Her response was immediate. Everything's ready on our end. Financial transfers complete, documents prepared, exhibits organized. Are you sure you want to do this tonight? Owen typed back. Yes. No more waiting. No more pretending. Most clients prefer to wait until morning when they're fresher, Grace cautioned. Most clients haven't spent months planning this moment, he replied. It has to be tonight. He stood, walking the perimeter of the dining room to check every detail. The chandelier, a wedding gift from Lila's parents, was dimmed to cast subtle shadows over the table. The folders were arranged in precise chronological order, telling the story of her betrayal piece by piece. Even the chair he'd chosen for her faced the windows, ensuring she'd have to look into the setting sun during their confrontation. The sharp ring of the house phone broke his thoughts. Lila's sister, Maya, according to the caller ID. He considered letting it go to voicemail but decided against it. It might raise suspicions. Hello? Hey, Owen. Maya's voice chirped cheerfully, oblivious. Just checking. Has my sister made it back from her retreat yet? She hasn't been answering her cell. She's on her way home now, he replied, keeping his tone neutral. She'll be here soon, he replied. Great. How was your weekend alone? Must have been boring without her, Maya said with a chuckle. Owen glanced at the surveillance photos spread across the table before him. Actually, it was quite productive, he replied dryly. You workaholics, Maya laughed. Well, tell her to call me when she gets in. We need to finalize plans for Mom and Dad's anniversary party next month. The anniversary party, a celebration that, after tonight, would never happen as planned. Owen kept his voice neutral. I'll let her know you called. After hanging up, he sent a final text to Jack. Send everything you have. I want it all ready when she walks in. Jack's response came swiftly but carried a note of caution. Uploading now, but listen, I've been doing this for 15 years. Confrontations like this usually go smoother in daylight, with lawyers present. Owen typed back, "This isn't the usual case. She thinks she's coming home to her clueless husband. Time to shatter that illusion." He clicked through the final batch of photos, each one stoking the cold fury that had replaced his heart. Lila and Nathan strolling hand in hand along the cabin's private trail. An intimate dinner on the deck. A damning series of images of them in the hot tub. Champagne glasses perched on the edge. The sound of a car pulling into the driveway broke his focus. Game time. Owen adjusted the dining room lights one last time, leaving just enough to cast dramatic shadows across the table, and then took his seat at the head. Keys jingled in the lock, and the front door opened. "Owen," Lila called out cheerfully. "I'm home. You won't believe how amazing the retreat was. The facilitators really challenged us to think differently about leadership and—" She froze in the doorway, her voice trailing off as she took in the scene. Owen was seated at the head of the table, manila folders spread out before him, his face partially obscured by the shadows of the dim chandelier. "What's all this?" she asked, her voice unsteady, her eyes darting between the folders and his unreadable expression. "Have a seat, Lila," he said, his tone glacial. "We need to talk about your weekend, the real one, not the fiction you've been feeding me." "What are you talking about?" she asked, though her face had already lost color. Her designer overnight bag slipped slightly in her grasp. "Sit down." Moving slowly, Lila lowered herself into the chair across from him, her bag dropping to the floor with a soft thud. Something clinked inside, probably the unfinished wine she and Nathan had shared. "You're scaring me," she said, her voice trembling as she tried to regain control. "What's going on?" Owen ignored her question. He opened the first folder and slid a photo across the table. It showed Lila and Nathan embracing outside the cabin, his hand tangled in her hair, her body pressed against his. "Looks like quite the leadership retreat," Owen said quietly. "Tell me, does Nathan Grant teach team dynamics before or after he takes you to bed?" Her face turned ashen as she stared at the photo, her hand trembling as she reached for it. "Where did you? How long?" Owen's voice cut through her, stammering like a blade. "How long have you been sleeping with him?" "Owen, please, I can explain. 6 months? A year?" He slid another photo across the table, this one of an earlier meeting at Luigi's restaurant. "Or has it been longer?" "Don't bother lying. I have everything documented." "You had me followed?" she asked, anger creeping into her voice, replacing the shock. "You invaded my privacy like that?" Owen let out a harsh, humorless laugh. "Privacy? You want to talk about privacy?" He pulled out a stack of receipts and tossed them on the table. "Let's discuss these hotel rooms you charged to our joint account, the Hyatt, the Hilton, that boutique place downtown. You weren't even trying to hide it anymore, were you?" "Those were business trips," she snapped. "Stop lying." His fist slammed onto the table, making her jump. "I have photos from every single one of those business trips. You and Nathan checking in, having dinner, sneaking around like teenagers. Did you think I was completely blind?" Her shock gave way to defiance. "Fine. You want the truth?" "Yes, I'm seeing Nathan. Because he actually sees me, Owen. He actually listens to me. When was the last time you did that?" "Don't you dare," Owen said, his voice deadly calm. "Don't try to blame me for your choices," Owen said coldly. "I gave you everything. The house, your car, those designer clothes you love so much. I supported your career, trusted you completely, never questioned your late meetings or work trips." He spread his hands. "And this is how you repay that trust?" Lila's voice trembled as she spoke. "It's not about things, Owen. It's about connection, about feeling alive." "Did you feel alive in that hot tub last night?" he asked, sliding the most recent photos toward her. "You certainly looked it." Lila's face crumpled as she looked at the images. "You really had someone watching us the whole time?" Owen nodded, his voice cold. "Ever since your wisdom tooth surgery." Lila stared at him, confused. "What does that have to do with anything?" Owen leaned forward. "You don't remember what you said in the car that day, under anesthesia? You called me a fool. You said you'd been cheating right under my nose. Even drugged. You couldn't help gloating about it." Lila's eyes widened, a slow realization dawning on her. "I said that?" "It was quite the wake-up call," Owen continued, pulling out more photos. "After that, I started paying attention. Really paying attention. The late-night phone calls in the garden, the mysterious gym sessions that somehow never changed your figure, the new passwords on everything, the networking events that ran late into the evening." He pulled out a detailed timeline. "Once I started looking, the pattern was obvious. Thursday night client meetings at Luigi's. Weekend business retreats at the cabin. You weren't even trying to be subtle anymore. Lila's voice quivered. So, what now? You've built your case. You've played detective. What do you want? Owen slid a thick legal document across the table. I want you to understand exactly what your choices have cost you. Lila's eyes widened as she read the heading, Divorce Papers. You can't be serious. Dead serious, Owen replied, his tone icy. But that's just the beginning. He pulled out more documents. You see, I've been very busy these past few months. Every asset we own has been documented, every account tracked, every penny accounted for. Lila grabbed the papers, scanning them frantically. Her face drained of color. What did you do? I protected what's mine. The house, the investments, the savings. Everything has been legally secured, Owen said, his smile chilling. Your signature is on all the necessary documents. My signature? Lila stammered. I never signed anything. Remember all those routine paperwork items you were too busy to read? The ones you trusted me to handle? Owen watched as realization hit her. You really should have paid more attention. Tears began to roll down Lila's cheeks. Owen, please, we can work this out. I'll end it with Nathan. We can get counseling, rebuild our trust, save our marriage. He cut her off. I've watched you lie too easily, too often. I can't believe anything you say now. It's not a performance. She stood up, knocking her chair back. Yes, I made a horrible mistake. Yes, I betrayed your trust. But 12 years of marriage has to mean something. It meant something to me, Owen replied, his voice icy. Right up until I discovered every moment of it was built on lies. Not every moment, she pleaded. What about our trips to the coast, the holidays with family, the life we built together? You mean the life where you were sneaking around with Nathan Grant while I played the role of the devoted husband? Owen pulled out more photos. Here you were with him at that cafe downtown, the same day you told me you were having lunch with Maya. And here you are, checking into the Westin, when you were supposedly at a conference. He laid out the evidence methodically. Hotel receipts, restaurant bills, text messages, every lie documented, every betrayal recorded. I'll fight you on this, Lila declared, wiping away her tears angrily. I'll get my own lawyer. You can't just erase 12 years. Go ahead, Owen said calmly, remaining seated. Every photo, every receipt, every piece of evidence is documented and filed. The affair, the lies, the misuse of joint funds. It's all here, Owen said, patting the folders. Grace Lee is very thorough. Lila's voice trembled as she spoke. You went to her? She's the most aggressive divorce attorney in the state, and worth every penny. Owen began gathering the papers. These need to be signed within 48 hours. Grace will contact whatever lawyer you choose with the details. And if you refuse, then everything becomes public record. His eyes locked with hers, cold and unwavering. Every photo, every detail will be aired in court. I wonder how that would affect your career, your family relationships, and your precious Nathan. Lila sank back in her chair, her face drained. You've really thought of everything, haven't you? I learned from the best, Owen replied, standing up. You taught me how to keep secrets, how to plan behind someone's back. I just took better notes. What happens now? Lila asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Now, I'll be staying at the Hilton until this is finalized. You can remain here temporarily, but the house will be sold as part of the settlement. She looked around frantically. But this is our home. This was our home before you turned it into just another place to lie to me, Owen said, moving toward the door. My lawyer will handle all communication from here on out. Wait, Lila rushed after him. You can't just walk away like this. We need to talk about this properly. We're done talking. He turned to face her one last time. You had 12 years to be honest, to value what we had. Instead, you chose hotel rooms with Nathan Grant. I never meant for any of this to happen, she whispered. But it did happen, he replied coldly. And now you have to live with the consequences. Owen picked up his pre-packed suitcase from the hallway. Goodbye, Lila. Owen, please. Her voice cracked. I love you. He paused at the door, hand on the knob. No, you love the convenience of me, the stability, the lifestyle. But you didn't love me enough to be faithful or honest. He opened the door. That's the difference between us. As he walked to his car, he heard Lila collapse in sobs behind him. Once, that sound would have torn at his heart, made him rush back to comfort her. Now, it meant nothing. His phone buzzed. It was Grace checking in. Did everything go according to plan? Yes, Owen replied, starting the engine. She knows she has no choice. And how are you holding up? Owen glanced at the house, their house, one last time. The warm lights in the windows that had once felt like home now seemed like nothing more than stage lighting for Lila's performance. "I'm fine," he said, his voice steady. "Some things can't be forgiven. Some betrayals don't deserve second chances." As he pulled away from the curb, his phone buzzed again. It was Maya. "Owen, Lila just called me sobbing." "What's going on?" "Ask your sister," he replied coolly. "Ask her about Nathan Grant and their romantic cabin getaways." "Nathan Grant? What are you talking about?" Maya asked, confused. "I'm sure she'll fill you in, or you can wait for the divorce papers to become public record." Owen ended the call before she could respond. More messages came in from Lila's parents and their mutual friends. The facade was crumbling fast. As he drove through the familiar streets of their neighborhood for the last time, Owen felt an odd sense of liberation. The weight of suspicion and betrayal that had been crushing him for months lifted, replaced by cold certainty. His phone buzzed once more. It was Lila. "Now please come back. We can talk about this. I'll tell you everything, then I'll end it with Nate. I promise. Just give me another chance. You can't throw away 12 years like this." Each message only strengthened his resolve. He pulled into the Hilton parking lot, where the valet was already expecting him. Grace had arranged everything, ensuring his transition would be seamless. "Welcome, Mr. Brooks," the front desk manager greeted him. "Your suite is ready. Would you like assistance with your bags?" "No need," Owen replied, lifting his single suitcase. "I've learned to travel light." The suite was on the top floor, offering a panoramic view of the city. Owen stood by the window, watching the sunset paint the sky in rich shades of red and gold. His phone had finally stopped buzzing, but a text from Grace appeared. "Just heard from Lucas Bennett. He'll be representing Lila. Good attorney, but no match for what we've prepared. Meeting set for Tuesday." "Perfect," Owen replied. "No negotiations on the terms." "Understood. Get some rest, Owen. You've done the hard part." But 12 years of memories didn't vanish with a single confrontation. They lingered, haunting him like ghosts in every familiar place, in every shared moment. His watch, the anniversary gift Lila had given him last year, felt heavy on his wrist. He took it off and dropped it into the hotel safe, along with his wedding ring. The indentation on his finger would fade with time. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. "Room service," the waiter announced, rolling in a cart with a bottle of scotch and a full dinner. "Compliments of Miss Lee. She said you might forget to eat." Grace had been right, as usual. He hadn't eaten since morning, too consumed with preparing for Lila's return. As he sat down to eat, his phone lit up with one final message from Lila. "I know you won't believe me, but I did love you. I still do." Owen deleted the message without responding. Love without loyalty was meaningless. Love without trust was just another lie. Tomorrow would bring meetings with lawyers, the division of assets, the clinical dismantling of their shared life. But tonight, he allowed himself to feel the full weight of what had happened and what he had done in response. Some might call him cold for walking away so completely, cruel for using her own trust against her, calculating for spending months preparing his revenge. They would be right. But betrayal changed people. The trusting husband who had driven Lila to her dental appointment months ago was gone. In his place was someone stronger, someone who would never again mistake blind trust for love. The city lights twinkled below, 1,000 points of light in the gathering darkness. Somewhere, Lila was probably still crying, calling friends and family, trying to salvage whatever she could of her reputation. Let her try. The evidence was ironclad. The trap was perfectly sprung. She would learn, as he had, that actions have consequences. Trust, once broken, could never be repaired. His phone buzzed one final time. "Jack, the PI. Need me to keep monitoring?" "No," Owen replied. "It's done." He turned off his phone and walked to the window. Below, the city continued its eternal rhythm, indifferent to the small dramas unfolding within it. Lives were changed, marriages ended, trust shattered, and the world kept turning. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, but tonight, Owen had done what needed to be done. No weakness, no forgiveness, no second chances. Some betrayals demanded nothing less. The divorce was everything I expected it to be, and yet, it still stung. Marin never contested anything. It was almost too easy, and honestly, that hurt more than I thought it would. We both walked away with what we brought into the marriage. The house, the investments, the savings, everything was divided equally, as it should have been. But there was no drama, no drawn-out arguments, no fighting over the things that once mattered so much to us. It was just paperwork, signatures, and the cold finality of it all. I watched her pack up her life, leaving behind the city where we built our lives together. She moved to Philly, away from everything she knew here. I don't know what she hoped to find, but that was her choice. I didn't care anymore. I had everything I needed right there in front of me. The closure, the finality, the sense that this chapter of my life was done. It's strange how quickly things can change. One moment, you're sharing a life with someone, and the next, it's all gone, as if it never happened. I've been doing a lot of thinking since then. There's a part of me that's relieved, free, maybe even a little lighter. But there's also a part of me that's still trying to make sense of it all, trying to understand how everything got so broken, so fast. I'm not in a rush to move on. I don't want to start dating soon, and I'm not looking for someone else to fill the void Marin left behind. For now, I'm just here, trying to find peace with everything, trying to rebuild a life for myself that doesn't have to involve anyone else. Maybe one day I'll be ready, but for now, I need to heal. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.